So if you need to make a level line, you always think that you need one of these. And it is the easiest, quickest, most intuitive way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it if you change the way you think about the tools you have at your disposal. Like this. This is a plumb bob. This is the string that the plumb bob is hanging from. And that string is hanging vertically. When I say vertical, I mean it is exactly a straight line from that screw to the center of the earth. That's as plumb can be. And if you have plumb, you're just about that close to having level, like this. A plumb bob is a wonderful thing because if you suspend any kind of a weight, whether it's a rock or a piece of wood, or in this case, a really nice brass plumb bob, from a string, you've established a line that is pointing straight towards the center of the earth. In other words, it's plumb. It's vertical. And you are halfway to a level line. Now, we talked about not having a level. Let's just assume you have a square, although you can do this without a square. And in this case, I can cross-sight, that is, look by the string until the edge of the square lines up beautifully. Or you can take a chalk line and transfer the mark back and snap it. But I'm just going to do this. I'm going to mark that, and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to infill between that, he said. And I will bet that that's a level line. The reality of existence dictates that 90 degrees off of vertical is level. See that? So that's the first way to find level without a level. If you don't have a square, you need to be able to measure a little bit, so you can use a 3, 4, 5 to get square. I'm going to use this yardstick just because it's convenient. I've got this piece of plywood. I've got a plumb line. I'm going to come back here and just run a mark. I could make marks and snap the line any way to transfer what gravity is showing us onto my case-in point. So we're going to figure that that is one side of a 3, 4, 5 triangle, and I'm going to use 6 for my multiplier. So 6 times 3 is 18. I put 18 on the mark, and I come over here, and I swing a little arc. That's 18 inches. Now, I should have marked here where I was going from, so I'm just eyeballing. It's happening right around in here someplace. Now, 6 times 4, as everybody knows, is 24. So I come up my plumb bob line to 24, and I make a mark up here. So we have 24 from here to here, and 18 from here to here. So let's see where 30 hits. 3, 4, 5 times 6 is 30. We're right up there. We come down here to 30, and we mark the intersection of the 18 and the 30 like this. And then we come back over here and commit ourselves to this leg of the right triangle. And we're going to assume and hope and represent that this is a square line and a level line. And there we have, within the accuracy of our instrumentation, a level line without using a level. So let's say that you need more level than just across a piece of plywood or across the wall of your back porch or, across a window. You need something longer, like across a garage. Maybe you're building a 30 by 40 foot garage and you need level on the corners and you don't have a transit and you don't have a laser. And what are you going to do? Well, you could rig up a water level. I went down to Apex Hardware, and for $29, I bought this clear tubing and these threaded adapters and the garden hose adapters and put it together to make a water level on a 50-foot hose in my shop. That means I can establish level at 2 points 50 feet apart. Let me show you what this looks like when you're using the fact that water will always seek level in a garden hose. Watch these things fluctuate. We'll raise this so you can see the really beautiful function of water. It takes a little while to reach equilibrium, and it seems to know where a level line is, doesn't it? It's like a swinging balance in chemistry class, right? I'm going to ease this up. You look at the meniscus. Look at that. Magic. Water knows level. I've got another example of that outside, even more primitive. And sometimes primitive is, a pretty good solution. I'm going to put about 25 or 30 feet between me and Brady over there at our control. Okay, Brady, you tell me when that thing is done moving around and it's about on that line. Coming down? Coming down? How much? That's not moving?
Back off, right there.
Steady?
Back off 1/8 inch.
Down?
Opposite way of whatever you just were.
Okay, coming up?
Yep, right there.
So that mark right there is the meniscus of the standing water in my water level. We are 22 feet apart, maybe? It could just as easily be 122 feet if you had enough hose, and if you're sure you don't have any air bubbles in the line. So yes, this is a giant cheat and maybe some clickbait to say that getting level with a laser is not using a level, and it's not, because there's no vials in this, right? We're not counting on a bubble moving back and forth through an arc that's submerged to get level. We're counting on electronics. But let's just use this to verify what our water level did, 22, 25 feet apart. I've got this set. It's reasonably well calibrated, always keeping in mind that my cameraman's vision is, I like a lot of cameraman's vision. We'll see how he did here. There you go. Within the 16th of the line. See how we do on this side. Just within microns. And microns are as good as you could hope. I'm impressed with the water level. Here's one more level that everybody's got and nobody realizes. And it's a leveling measuring app on your phone. So this is a fabrication table. You would expect it to be level. I'm not sure it's as level as this phone indicates, but what do you expect from Apple, right? So this last one, and I promise you this is the last one, is as primitive can be, and I think it's probably what the Egyptians used. Although where they got that much water, I don't know. But since water will seek its own level, we put this piece of wood across here in a spot where, using a stick, we are making contact with the surface right there. And then keeping my fingers in the same spot as a gauge, we run down until we make contact right there. Contact, contact. Let's drop a level on there and see what it says. Should we use the iPhone? There we have it. So I've got a story about level and water and getting out of a pinch. I was 27 years old in Powell, Wyoming. I was running my sawmill that I'd built when I was 22, and I'd brought it back there. We starved out of Oregon, and I was trying to saw a lodgepole pine clear out, east of the Rocky Mountains. What was I thinking? But I needed a machine to move the logs, and I found a deal on an old 1958 model International I-9 with a front end loader. And the motor was froze up. And I got it for $200, and I pulled it down to John Cousins' shop. John Cousins was a prince of a man. The whole Cousins clan are elegant, wonderful people. And he let this silly kid from Oregon move into his shop to overhaul an antique tractor. So I pulled the head off and one of the pistons was locked in, and I got it out, and I got new rings and I put in there, and I put it back together, and it started up. And I welded some pipe pockets into the bucket so I could make forks with, I think it was drill stem pipe. It was a heavy wall pipe about that big. And they slid into the sockets, and I thought, wow, how am I going to mark a plane on a pipe, a long, shallow angle that's in enough of a plane that I can weld a piece of plate on the bottom? How am I going to do that? How would you do that? And it was wintertime, and it was cold, and I was young, and this had to work. And I thought, I know, John had a little feed lot. He was feeding some steers through the winter, and I took that pipe out, and I laid it into the water trough at about the right angle, right? And I pulled it out, and as soon as I pulled it out, it froze. And I got the other pipe, and I did the same thing. I laid it into the same angle, and I pulled it out, and it froze. And then I took my soapstone, and I just marked the juncture between the ice and the pipe, took the cutting torch and cut it off, and sure enough, 1/4-inch plate welded right on. And I made boards, and I was stressed, and I had responsibilities, and I had things to learn, and I sold some boards, and then I decided that was done, and we made a video about that because I made a recording of that old mill before I left Wyoming. More information on sawmills later. But in any case, thinking about square, plumb, and true. I mean, square off of plumb is level. Don't confuse plumb and level. Vertical is not level. Vertical is plumb. Words matter. Nomenclature in construction is a big part of the way that work happens, is by sharing the same nomenclature, the same vocabulary, having the same glossary of terms, and perhaps more importantly, the same definition of what it means to do good work. That's what we got to learn, is to do good work. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman. Keep up the good work.